saw that he had travel insurance. So they redirected him to the private hospitals, thinking he's got travel insurance, no problem, right? He was in a coma. He was in a coma, I believe, for 7 to 10 days. Submitted to the clinic, called the travel insurance company. They said, no, pre-existing condition, he's not covered. His bill was $10,000 a day US. He was there for, again, I think it was like, let's call it 7 days. So it was a $140,000 US bill.
Wake up, it's time to rise. Talking money, my sharp insight. Jim and Ryan here to guide. Mastering the money ride. Saving stacks and planning dreams. Living large by honest means. Tune in now for the schemes. Breaking down financial themes. Money mindset every day.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Money Mindset Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Jim, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Sorry, Jim, I made a mistake. I didn't think we were doing this at the office today, so it's my apologies.
That's okay.
But I have a mild excuse that my brain was in other places this weekend. And we sometimes talk about our weekends, but I think TVH Financial, TVH Legal, TVH Group as a whole had a great weekend this weekend to kind of share, and I'll share again in other ways, which is we did a great charity concert this past weekend to raise funds for McMaster Children's Hospital, and we had a great show up of clients and friends and family and neighbors. So we raised just over $2,500 for the charity. So my brain wasn't fully in the right space to remember that I was supposed to be at the office right now doing the recording across from you instead of virtually. So
that's okay.
But
then the next one, maybe
yes,
the next one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
good. Well, today we're going to be talking about a product that a lot of people just don't understand. And this is actually from an article that was out on Global News last week at some point. And the title is The $108,000 Lesson, What Travel Insurance Fine Print Can Teach Us About Financial Preparedness. So I thought I'd start off with playing this video from Global News that will go through the story. And I actually have a personal story to share. And just, we're not here to provide any advice either way when it comes to the product itself. We're here to provide you with information, as always, right? But like Ryan and I always say that if you have any questions, if you want to see if this would impact you in any way, then obviously reach out to, I would suggest after you hear this, you're going to agree with me, talk to a qualified life insurance agent who understands the products, and you're going to see why. So I'm going to hope that technology is working for me today, and I'm going to share my screen and play this clip, and then we will go from there. Let me just see here. This is what we're going to play. Alrighty, let's give it a go.
A BC woman is sharing her travel health insurance nightmare as a cautionary tale to warn others. She ended up in a Florida hospital and thought she was fully covered until she received a shocking hospital bill months later. With more on her story, let's bring in Consumer Matters reporter Andrea. Ann?
Thanks, Sophie. Roseanne Timbrell says she had extended health coverage through her work and felt confident traveling out of country, but Roseanne ended up in a Florida hospital where she received a life-changing diagnosis. But there was more shocking news. It turns out there was a clause in the fine print of her health insurance policy that proved costly. It was supposed to be a well-deserved vacation. Roseanne Timbrell and her husband heading to Walt Disney World in Florida to unwind and relax.
Walt Disney World is a great place just to hang out.
The trip was this past February, but just prior to leaving, Roseanne says she was experiencing flu-like symptoms.
I wasn't feeling the greatest before I went on vacation.
As a precaution before her trip, Roseanne says she consulted with her doctor about her symptoms and had a blood test, but says at the time there was no cause for alarm.
But I'm still able to go to work. So if I'm able to go to work, I think I'm able to go on this vacation.
Roseanne says she had extended health insurance coverage through her work and felt confident she was covered. But when she arrived in Florida, Roseanne says her symptoms were getting worse. Eventually, Roseanne decided to go to emergency. But before she did, Roseanne says she called her insurance provider to make certain her hospital visit would be covered.
The agent said, yes, you're covered, and you do have extended health for out of country. And I said, okay, because if not, I'm jumping on the next plane.
Roseanne arrived at the Florida hospital where she received shocking news. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
I guess it was traumatizing. It's not something you would ever think that would happen on vacation.
Roseanne spent 5 days in the Florida hospital undergoing further testing. When she returned home, her insurance provider denied her claim, stating the expenses incurred at travel were directly related to your unstable pre-existing condition. Within the fine print of her policy, there was a stability clause, which means a pre-existing medical condition must remain stable for 90 days prior to traveling. Roseanne was hit with a medical bill of $108,000 US.
Just absolutely shocking. I just wish I'd gotten on the plane and come home instead of dealing with all that in the States.
Travel expert Claire Newell says, sadly, Roseanne's claim denial isn't uncommon. Stability clauses are often written in standard medical insurance policies.
A lot of people still don't realize that there is a stability period. And in some policies, it's 3 months. In others, it can be as high as 6 months. And it's really important that you read the fine print.
A GoFundMe page has been set up by family and friends to help Roseanne. Still, Roseanne hopes her story helps others avoid the insurance nightmare she's still dealing with.
Understand your policy very, very, very clearly, because you're having to be your own best advocate.
And we are told by Roseanne's insurance provider there is a resolution process to dispute her claim if she chooses. That process will allow her claim to be reviewed by a complaints investigator. Again, travel experts warn it's important to read the fine print of any policy, especially around the stability clause, and to ask questions. Also, make sure you request the actual policy. That's not a brochure. That's a full policy with full details of what is covered and what isn't. And if you have a consumer issue for me, you can email me at consumermatters@globalnews.ca.
So, a couple of things I actually want to discuss about what the lady said. The first one being that she had wished she'd just gotten on the plane so she would have been dealt with in Canada. Here's the one problem with that. If you arrive at the airport and you don't look well, they're not putting you on the plane. So that's not really a good strategy, because I know in the past I've talked to clients about travel insurance and maybe why they shouldn't take the risk in traveling out of the country. I've had one example, if you have a heart attack, and I've had some people respond to me and say, well, if I'm having a heart attack, then I'll just get on the plane, fly back, and then I can be treated back in Canada. It's like, well, if you're having a heart attack, they're not putting you on the plane. Well, you're just not going to be put on. So that's not really a good strategy to kind of deal with this potential insurance situation, through the travel insurance. So there's that. And then the other thing I want to kind of discuss is the stability clause. I think that's the part that people don't really realize how that works and what that means. And in terms of the stability, even a change of your medication, I'm going to use me as an example. I've been taking statin drugs now for, 15 years or so. And if I, for example, went to my family doctor tomorrow and my family doctor said to me, hey, Jim, cholesterol is looking really good. We're going to actually drop the amount that you're taking, or it's not looking so good. We need to increase it. Just that change in medicine, even though I've been on it for 15 years and it's a statin drug, that starts the stability period. Technically, if I went to go fly out of country, out of province or out of country in particular, within the 90-day period of that change being made and something happens to me, I could be declined for coverage. All right. So, Ryan, before we kind of get into more nitty gritty over this, you used to be a world traveler. I'm sure you bought yourself travel insurance along the way. Before you became an advisor, were you aware of any of these issues with the travel insurance?
Not at all. And I think this goes for most people, as you just said, which is a large portion has to do with the underwriting process. And that's why the insurance companies are focused on making sure that the underwriting is done, that they're taking on all the risks, they understand all the risks. And for pretty much every travel insurance that I ever got, no underwriting process was ever done. A lot of people travel with their credit cards, assuming that they have some sort of emergency or medical coverage too. Yeah. I have heard it work from time to time, but
Mm-hmm.
again, you're truly taking on all the risk yourself and paying for a potential product that is likely not going to pay out. And as
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately as this woman did, she ended up with a very large bill. And it's again, that's why we wanted to make sure that people were aware of some of the things that may or may not be understood in the industry. Now, as you've before this recording, you were talking about how you don't necessarily lean on travel insurance for as a recommendation for anybody, and that goes to who the advisor is and what their comfort level is actually taking you through each of the steps. And in a previous life, I did sell some cases, but it was only until I truly understood what exactly I was selling and all the little particular things. And there's a lot.
Yeah.
And as an advisor, I've kind of backed off introducing that to clients only because there's always there's no underwriting process. That's what it comes down to for me,
Yeah.
at least. That most insurance companies. We've talked about mortgage insurance as a perfect example of a product that is no underwriting, and that none of the payouts can ever be guaranteed for somebody who assumes that they're being covered for it. So
Not just mortgage insurance, but creditor insurance or credit insurance in general, right? You'll be offered through the bank life insurance to cover off the outstanding balance on your line of credit
yeah,
or on your car loan or whatever else. All that the products work in a very similar way.
yeah,
Where, to your point, there's no medical underwriting done up front. You really don't know if you're going to be covered until the claim is submitted, and that's the worst time to find that out, right?
you're
And
already
just to
under enough stress.
exactly. But just to correct you, it's not that I don't recommend travel insurance. I don't offer it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't offer it because of how the product is structured, right? But when I have had people ask me, like, what do you think? Should I get it? And I'm like, get it anyway. It's like accident insurance, right? The chances that
Mm-hmm.
you'll ever claim on accident insurance is less than 2%. But hey, if you happen to have an accident, then you're going to get a payout, right? So I would never, ever, ever say to someone, yeah, don't get travel insurance, you're wasting your money. My
Mm-hmm.
recommendation has always been get it, but understand that you may not be fully covered.
Yeah,
So it's more about the risk management side of things, right? And the reason why we're talking about this is, and why it really matters in terms of financial literacy, because people think financial literacy is all about investing, right? But it's not about just investing. It's about protecting yourself from unexpected risks. And
yeah.
this is the one that we see a lot of. Um, a couple of stories to share, personal stories, one shorter than the other one, that speaks to this situation. So my stepdad, he and my mom used to go down to Florida because my step siblings, they've had some property in Florida, and he loves the heat, and so he would go down. And I actually would warn him again about the travel insurance and his age, and he had a lot of pre-existing conditions. Of course, he wouldn't take my advice because he really wanted to go down to Florida, and he has COPD, which is basically some form of lung disease. Okay. And he went down one year. I think it was actually the last time he went down, which was about a few years ago. And he developed pneumonia while he was in Florida. And he went to go see, went to a walk in clinic. And the bill was $1,800 US for him to go in. I think he got some puff or some medicine. And he thought, I got travel insurance, even though I warned him that he probably wouldn't qualify for the benefit because of the pre existing condition. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I paid all this money for insurance, so clearly I'm covered. Well, guess what? Submitted the claim. 6 months later, found out you're not covered under the policy. So then he went to OHIP. Well, OHIP, just before he went down, changed what they cover for out of province, and they denied him as well. So he had to pay $1,800 US out of pocket, which in his example wasn't that significant. But I have another family member who he had COVID. He's had heart conditions. He ended up flying to Vietnam because his second wife, she's Vietnamese, so they went to go visit her family. While he was there, he got sick, went into a coma. Now, in Vietnam, my understanding from the story that my cousin shared with me is they have both a public and a private medical system. So usually the default is you go to the public system, but they saw that he had travel insurance. So they redirected him to the private hospitals, thinking he's got travel insurance, no problem, right? Well, he was in a coma. He was in a coma, I believe, for 7 to 10 days. My cousins submitted the claim. They called the travel insurance company. I'm not going to name the insurance companies, but this was one of the large ones that's well known. And they said, no, pre-existing condition, he's not covered. His bill was $10,000 a day US. He was there for, again, I think it was like $140,000 US bill. Now, he wasn't expected to come out of the coma. So his family flew all the way to Vietnam to be with him over his last few days while he was there. And it's kind of like out of the movies. You know, his daughter walked in, and as she stepped into the room, he came out of the coma. And he's been fine ever since, right? So they thought they were going to be bringing him back home in a casket. And thankfully, he survived and he woke up. But the hospital would not release him because he was still not well. And they wouldn't release him unless he agreed and paid for escort to be brought back to Canada escorted by a doctor and a nurse at a bill of $10,000, right? So we're talking a couple of $100,000 here. And all he was doing was going to Vietnam, travel insurance like everyone's told to do, right? And he's still stuck with a bill of over a couple $100,000 Canadian. So we're pointing this out again, when you buy that insurance, understand what you're buying. And if you've had a pre-existing condition, I mean, I had open heart surgery back in 2019. And the insurance company that I was going to buy my travel insurance from had a 120-day stability clause. And I remember going to the insurance company. So I have the benefit of doing it because I'm in the business. And I said, well, here's when I had my surgery, my heart surgery. I have a conference to go to in Arizona, and it literally falls like on day 121. Am I covered? Now, they did say yes. They wouldn't put it in writing. And at that point, I just decided not to go to the conference because I'm like, I can still have a stroke. I can still have a heart attack. And I don't want to go down there with the stress of thinking, will I not be covered, right? And I've known other people who have had heart attacks in the U.S. who've come back home with a $300,000 to $500,000 medical bill, right? So these are just some examples. And by no means are we saying don't buy travel insurance. All we're just saying, again, and I know this is probably the third time we've said it, understand what you're buying. The problem is when you're buying it from the bank or the travel agent, they're not insurance licensed. And I've heard people say, well, I asked, the travel agent about my lung condition or my heart condition. They'll say, oh, it shouldn't be a problem. They don't know. Right.
Yeah. I guess the lesson comes down to really, really understanding what your pre-existing conditions are, how they affect the insurance, and being able to ask those questions up front. Maybe, as you said, get it in writing. Yeah. And that stability clause becomes two of the biggest things that affect people's ability to get anything from a potential insurance, travel insurance payout. So accept the fact, understand that it may give you peace of mind to have some sort of coverage, know the details enough to read through. Again, I have a story of traveling to Cuba with my son. The same thing. I bought the travel insurance. Thankfully, I had read the details on it, and it was nothing big for my son. It was just he had an allergic reaction to something. Right. Thankfully, didn't cost a whole lot, but it ended up being covered under the insurance because I knew the details of the insurance and that it was okay. So, unfortunately, the travel insurance and a couple of these ones that are especially not underwritten are the reason why people often look at life insurance as a whole and kind of clump them together.
In the same way. Yeah, you're right.
In the same way, right? Oh, I don't believe insurance because this happened. But again, it's coming and talking to a licensed advisor that's going to help you walk through, be able to ask you the right questions, for you to ask the right questions to make sure that we understand what are your pre-existing. Have you made any medical changes within your prescriptions, and how that can affect whether or not you're covered in some way, a portion or all or nothing at all. So yeah.
Now I am aware there could be more, but I'm only aware of one insurance company in Canada that will go through the underwriting process for travel medical insurance. And they will let you know if there's any potential exclusions, any issues, what may not be covered, what would be covered, right? So if you want to find out who that insurance company is, if you want to make sure that you have, or you can be as sure as you possibly can that you have coverage, reach out to Ryan or I, and we would definitely refer you to that insurance company to see, after you go through the medical underwriting, if you would in fact be covered. So I'd say for people who are going for extended periods of time, specifically in the US, right? Because the US, you get a bill. Like this lady, I think she was charged $108,000. She negotiated it down to $65,000. It's still a lot of money, right? So yeah, reach out to us, comment section if you want. You can email us financial@tvhgroup.ca, or just visit us on our website at tvhfinancial.ca. And I think you mentioned this already, right, Ryan? Over-reliance on employer or credit card insurance. It's offered in the credit card. It's part of the group benefits package. They just assume that they have coverage, and they go out there blindly thinking there's not going to be a problem. And here's the other thing, too, is in reality, most of us, if we're going on vacation, we're not going on vacation thinking that we're going to have some kind of medical event, right? We go out there thinking we're going to relax and sit on a beach or whatever it is that
Some
you
pina
enjoy.
coladas.
Exactly, right? No one's thinking I might have a massive heart attack or get in a car accident, but it happens, and that's why you buy this type of coverage, right?
Yeah.
Anything else that you kind of want to add to this?
Well, you just spoke about, like, those group benefit programs are not underwritten, right? They're bought as a large sum. It costs very little, and that's one of the things is people look at the cost. Oh well, I'm only paying probably $1.27 off my paycheck for some sort of group insurance, and assuming that I'm going to be covered for it. The same with a lot of the other online specialty. I'll get quick coverage right away at low cost, but if you don't understand the underwriting process costs money, and that's why there's guarantees involved in it. So from group insurance to your credit card to mortgage to travel insurance, there's all these areas that if you want to truly plan and make sure that you're covered, that you're going to pay a little bit more often, but you can guarantee that there's going to be a payout at the end versus being unsure. So
yeah, one of my recommendations is, and I'm going to think back to my stepdad in this situation, because he bought his coverage at the travel agency. And because of my conversations with him about travel insurance and the risk that he was taking, he spoke with a travel agent and asked him if he would be covered under certain conditions. And he asked for it in writing. So the travel agent wrote on a piece of paper, right, that he would be covered under these certain conditions. And he brought it to me, and he's like, well, it's in writing. And I'm like, the travel agent can't guarantee you any of that, right? Like they just can't. It's up to the insurance company to decide if you're going to get paid out. And here's the other thing too, is if there is a claim, the insurance company is going to use their medical doctors to determine, again, if they're going to be paying you out or not. If there was a pre-existing condition, right? Your own doctor might say differently, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your doctor says. What matters is what the insurance company's doctor says, right? Because they're the ones that are going to be potentially paying the money out. And the worst part is, it's a 6-month waiting process in most cases. You're waiting 6 months to find out if you're actually going to receive the payout or not. That's what happened with the lady as well in the news story. Yeah. So, and again, what counts as changing conditions? So going back to the writing, don't ask the travel agent to put it in writing. Don't ask the banker to put it in writing. Don't ask the person at customer service with the credit card company to put it in writing. Talk to the insurance company. Speak with them directly, ask them to provide it in writing, highlighted, so you know that you are covered within the policy. But what I would say is 90% of the policies, because I've read a lot of them, they're all the same. They're all the biggest difference is the stability clause may be different from one insurance company to another. Pre-existing condition clause may be different from one insurance to the company to the other. But other than that, they're all pretty much the same. So ask and speak to the professionals when it comes to the travel insurance, mortgage insurance, credit insurance, right? Any of those types of coverages.
Yeah, removing the emotional financial stress that can happen if an incident happens. Do your homework, talk to us, and figure out what's the best way to ensure that stress is reduced. Lots of people say they reduce stress by just talking to us because they're informed now and they understand instead of being in the uninformed. So
yeah.
yeah.
And even with what counts as a change in condition, I've heard horror stories where taking vitamins, certain supplements, all of a sudden is considered a change in condition and it impacts the stability period, right? It's a wild, wild west when it comes to the coverage. It really is.
I'll have to be careful how many Flintstone vitamins I take every morning now.
I love those things. Righty. Well, I think that's really it in terms of the story, the product. I just want to repeat again, we're not advising one way or another. I do believe, though, if I was to give advice, and I have given advice to clients, you should have the coverage, but just, again, fully understand what you're covered for, what the potential conditions could be, and what the clauses are, without having the expectation that no matter what happens, you're 100% covered, because it doesn't work that way. So anything else, Ryan, that you want to add before we shut her down for the day?
I'd say it's obviously the importance of building an emergency fund for things like this, these unexpected costs that come up, and working with advisors like you and I to ensure that we're helping people create a full plan that can cover unexpected costs like these. So it's unfortunate that it happens, and that, again, that people are hearing the right information, that an underwriting process can be all the difference when it comes to getting a payout versus not getting a payout. And yeah.
And just as a final reminder, if you are looking to hear which insurance company actually does offer pre-underwriting for travel insurance, reach out to us and we'll connect you with that insurance company. So if you like what you heard, share. If you think there's other people that should be aware of what we just shared today, even with the newscast that we shared in the beginning of the recording. Please like, share, subscribe to our channel, send it out by way of email, however you decide you want to share the article or the webcast and the recording. We will have a blog post as well if you want to share that out. Or visit us at tvhgroup.ca, tvhfinancial.ca, or any of our social media accounts. So Ryan, thanks again. And until next time, see you later.
Take care, Jim.
Why is it me? Why am I a guy? I still